What up, my beautiful tubers? Thank you so much for clicking on today's episode. I deeply appreciate it. And we have absolute banger going over all three explosive weapon options, the crossbow, the denominator, and the eruptor. And this video is chock-packed full of information, so I'm going to need your TikTok brains to stick with me on this one. I know attention span's getting short these days, but this video is going to save you either on lives, medals, or super credits. So let's go over all of it after the intro. All right, divers, let's go straight into the stats. Mainly looking at the damage and the fire rate. Right now, the crossbow is beating the denominator with 420 to 275, but it's losing with the fire rate at 50 to 250. So that's going to come into play. And right now, the crossbow is beating the Eruptor way across the board, 420 with the damage to 380. Recoil is beating it, and then so is the fire rate. So on paper, it looks like a lot better. But I think it's really going to become between the Eruptor and the Denominator, in my personal opinion. With the damage, of course, being at 380 for the Eruptor and the Denominator at 275. But the fire rate is what's going to come into play. And we'll go more of that once we go over the loadouts. Starting off with the Terminids. So the Terminids loadout, I like to bring in the Eagle Airstrike. I also like to bring in the Orbital Rail Cannon Strike. And I bring in the Guard Dog Rover. Despite the quote-unquote nerf, this thing is still OP in my opinion. And my Quasar Cannon. For my boosters, I'm bringing in my stamina enhancement. Mainly I'm bringing in the stamina enhancement is because I'm running this medium armor. This medium armor has saved my life. If I had a nickel for every time the medium armor has saved my life, I would have a shit ton of nickels. And I'd spend those nickels on super credits. Because look at this. This medium armor is just keeping me alive during this bombardment of Terminids. And it is straight awesome. So that's why I like to bring in. But honestly, when it comes to any stratagem you want to use is totally fine. Any primary you want to use is totally fine as long as you're comfortable with it. If you want to bring in a 500 kilogram bomb, do it. The clusters, do it. It is all good in my opinion, just as long as you feel comfortable with it. So let's head on over to the automatons. With the automatons, I still bring in my Eagle Airstrike. I'm still going to bring in my Orbital Rail Cannon, but instead of the Guard Dog Rover, I'm bringing in my Shield Backpack, and I'm bringing in my Quasar Cannon, of course, because despite the quote-unquote nerf, this thing is still meta in my opinion. All right, let's hop on over to more statistics. Starting off with the crossbow, we have a 250 projectile damage plus a 170 explosive damage, giving us 420 total damage. This has no projectile piercing, no environmental destruction, and no firing sounds, which makes it a pretty good option for stealthier gameplay. Next is the Denominator. The Denominator has a single fire and a 3-round burst if you just toggle over with your reload speed. It deals 275 damage per bullet. It's a gyrojet ballistic, so it fires a little bit slower than your normal rounds. It's audible to enemies 50 meters away, so it's pretty much like a medium sound when it comes to alerting other enemies. Onto the Eruptor, you have 180 projectile damage plus 200 explosive damage. That's going to give you 420 total damage. The splash damage is 15 meters, and your maximum range with this thing is 100 meters. So keep that in mind when you're using this weapon. Also, when you're using this weapon, the reload timing is one thing you're going to have to get used to because visually it might not look like you're reloading, especially when you're swapping other weapons, but you actually are. And keep in mind that it is the loudest. Every time you fire it and the projectile lands, you're going to alert other enemies. Nonetheless, though, let's hop right into the crossbow. CB-9 exploding crossbow fires powerful exploding bolts which do maximum damage upon direct impact. So let's go over the ammo capacity when we're using the crossbow, because we get 6 shots with 1 in the chamber and 5 in our mag. We get to carry 8 mags, that's giving us 48 shots total. And it's not a lot because I honestly find myself running back to the supplies way more than I need to with this weapon. With this recent patch, it's slightly smaller explosions. It decreased maximum magazines from 12 to 8, and a slight reduction in ergonomics. And I wish it gave us some more information on that last one, but nonetheless, it did give us a muzzle velocity and it did increase the number of mags received in the supply from 6 to 8. So if you can see up top, we have the Armored Warriors, and it takes 2 to 3 shots to take them out. And if you saw before that, it was the Brood Commander, and it was about 2 to 7. When you're using the crossbow, it does have a little bit of damage splash, so it's best to use your secondary weapon if the enemies get too close, but still it's not too bad. With the Armored Warrior, it was about 3 to 4 shots, and with the female Bow Spewer, it's about 6 shots, or depending on where you hit it. Back to the Brood Commander, it's about 3 to 7 shots, depending if you get headshots. A lot of these things vary depending on headshots. With the Charger, on how weak it is, it could take up to 5 to 10 bolts or arrows with this thing. It is a pretty decent tank, but still, nonetheless, you can be somewhat effective when you're going against Chargers. Bile Titans, don't even try it. You could do a little bit of damage, but it's not even worth it. So when you're fighting against the troopers, it's always one shot, and it gives them a little bit of stagger, but not too much. The Scout Striders got a buff, so they are about 1 to 3 shots depending on where you hit the Scout Strider, or if you take off the enemy that's controlling it. You just need to be more accurate. If you hit them right there on the leg, it'll take it down 1 shot. The Berserkers are a little bit crazy. It's about 2 to 4. These guys definitely can eat some shots for sure. So you definitely want to aim for the head or the torso right there, but not in the shoulders, because that's where the armor is the most thick for sure. The armor penetration on this thing isn't too good, so that's why I'm always running back supplies, because I'm dumping through these mags so quick, and you need to be really accurate when it comes to using this weapon. The Devastator, especially when you're fighting the Devastators, the Devastator with the shield takes about 1 to 3 shots. The Devastator with the rocket mounts could take up to 3 to 7 shots depending on where you hit it. And accuracy is key. With the recent updates, it gave us muzzle velocity, so it's now not really a hit scan, but it's getting up there. That red dot is pretty accurate. You cannot take out bug holes, and you cannot take out buildings or fabricators or screechers' nests or anything like that. So let's hop on over to the Denominator, also known as the JAR-5. Firing jet-propelled rounds, the Denominator trades fire rate and magazine capacity for increased damage per projectile. Sorry, my face cam wasn't working, so we're just going to do the voiceover. And with probably the post-patch, it was doing 300 damage, but with this patch you see on the screen, it damage decreased from 300 to 275. And you get 15 rounds with 6 mags, giving you 90 rounds total. And I honestly finding myself running to supplies way more and using my stratagems way more than I need to when using this gun after this patch. With the Scavengers, it does take 1 shot, and since there is no splash damage, they can get pretty close to you, and you can still use this gun without weapon swapping and be pretty effective on the battlefield. When it comes to fighting the Warriors, you're about 2 to 3 shots, depending on distance and accuracy. The Bile Spears of females are about 4 to 7, and the males are about 3 to 4, depending on headshots. Accuracy is key when you're using this weapon. Keep that in mind. Stalker Kip got deleted, so we're at 4 to 5 shots with that bad boy. The Chargers, depending on where you hit them and how weak they are, it could take up to 6 to 10 shots. Our Brood Commanders being slight mini tanks, coming in at 5 to 8 shots. Those guys are eating. When you're coming to the Stormtroopers, I mean the automatons, the troopers, they're pretty much 1 shot. I feel like this Denominator has a bit of a damage drop-off, so if they're not 1 shot, they're about 2 shots. The Devastator with this medium shield is about 3 to 5 shots, depending on where you hit it. Hitting that head is kind of difficult, especially when there's multiple coming at you, and they give you a really big stagger, so it's hard to keep your accuracy and hit those 3 to 5 shots. With the Scout Strider, with this patch, they got a buff, so you want to be a little bit more accurate with them. So shooting the Strider on the back, or just the Scout in general, I recommend shooting at his legs. They're a little bit more weaker and easier to hit, or just wrapping around and taking out the operator in general is the best way to handle those. Coming across the Devastators with the rockets on the back, you want to keep your distance, and you want to make sure you hit your headshots or shoot them in the abdomen, but it's going to take about 6 to 7 shots in general. With the Berserkers, come at you pretty quickly, but since there is no splash damage, you can go ahead and mag dump on these dudes, and it's going to take 3 to 4 shots, depending on if you hit them in the head or in the abdomen. I think they do similar damage, but nonetheless, I'm always going for headshots just to be sure. So keep that in mind when you're fighting these bad boys. And if I forgot something like the Striders or the Hulks or tanks, it's because I didn't come across them during when I was making these videos, and I deeply apologize. Nonetheless, the Devastators do take 4 to 5 shots. When you come across buildings or fabricators or any other thing that requires you to blow up, you cannot blow them up with this weapon. So keep that in mind. And bug holes, spore spewers, anything like that, you cannot take out. So let's move on.
All right, I'm just checking in on you, making sure you're still paying attention. You TikTok brainers.
Because we saved the best for last. The R-36 Eruptor, my personal favorite. This bolt-action rifle fires jet-assisted shells that explode shrapnel in all directions upon impact. Close quarters not recommended. And right off the rip, we get 6 shots times 6 mags, giving you 36 shots total, or 30 rounds total. With this patch that we have on the screen, it decreased maximum mags from 12 to 6. And explosion damage drops off slightly faster. And these patches, I just wish they had more information, and hopefully in the future they will provide that, but that's all we get. And when close quarters is not recommended, let's take that more in consideration, because when you're fighting hunters and scavengers and they get pretty close to you, I definitely recommend using your secondary weapon. And you know, I got the rover like the loadout in the very beginning, so
oh no! Okay. That's alright, it's fine. For democracy.
Be careful when you're using this gun around your teammates. Friendly fire isn't friendly, and no one likes killing other Helldivers. So use your fortified armor or shield pack to counter these options if you want. But the hunters are pretty much one shot when it comes down to it. A lot of these guys are one shot, especially if you hit them in the head. Armored warriors, one shot. The bow spewers, the males are one shot. That's why I love this gun. It's why it's a personal favorite of mine. The damage it does and how effective it is, as soon as you get used to the reload timing, it is a straight beast. I hit that charger in the background first before I one-shot and two-shotted these brood commanders before the charger tried to coming at me. And it took about 4 shots after I hit it with the cannon right there. So keep that in mind. These can be taken out very easily. I didn't come across a bow titan, unfortunately, but you can't blow them up regardless. You want to use your stratagems when you're coming across heavily armored enemies. You know, be a smart Helldiver. But nonetheless, these are tanks. They could take 4 to 9 shots. Moving on to the automatons, the Devastator with the medium shield, 1 to 3 shots. I recommend shooting on the ground a lot of the times with the automatons because the splash damage is so effective when using this weapon. It just makes it a little bit more easier, and you don't really have to think too much. You can just kind of shoot, rotate, shoot, rotate. The Devastator with the medium shield takes 2 to 3 shots. The Berserkers, you do want to keep them at range because they can take 2 to 3 shots. And once they get too close, you want to use your secondary weapon. I did come across a Hulk, but I'm fighting him from front, and that has too much armor. You do want to shoot him in the back heat sinks, just like how I'm shooting the tank right there. The tank apparently can be exploded with the Eruptor, but I didn't get to do it. And I came across this Devastator before the tank blew up. So let me know in the comment sections if it can take out tanks. I'm very, very interested. And I'll do a little bit more testing in the future. The Scout Striders with the buff, when you shoot them, the operator jumps out the back. So I recommend shooting them in the legs. The regular Devastator takes 2 shots. The buildings, you could finally one-shot buildings with this weapon, and you could take out bug holes, you could take out spore spewers, you could take out shriekers' nests. You could do a lot with this weapon. It is very effective in the battlefield, and that's why it's my personal favorite. You guys are my personal favorite. I hope you have a great day, a great month, and a great year. My name's Sincere, and I'll catch you in the next one.